You can homeschool in a very limited time frame. And if you are a working homeschool mom, I'm going to show you today how to take that little time that you have and to maximize it so that your child can still receive a successful education. Sometimes you run out of hours in the day and there's literally not an extra 5 minutes to spare. Are you then, as a working homeschool mom, putting your child at a disadvantage by homeschooling them? No, you know that your child deserves a custom education and you know that homeschooling is the way to provide that for them. I want you to feel assured that you have the tools in place to be the one to provide that for your child. So we are going to be breaking down 5 quick tips where you can learn how to take that limited time that you have and maximize it for your child's education. How do I know these things? Well, I'm a working homeschool mom myself. It is my mission to support you to find the freedom to reflect who you are as a family through the way that you teach so that you can deepen connection with your child. And as I have been homeschooling my own children and teaching in the school system and then teaching as a home learning support teacher, I've seen some really key easy strategies that you can incorporate today to take that limited time and maximize it so that you can really help your child stretch to higher levels of learning that they would have never been able to get through on their own. Step 1 is to use a themed approach rather than a subject by subject approach. And yes, I say this even though I have this video about each of the subject areas and how you can approach each of those. It is when we start to combine those together that we can take 20 minutes with each subject, combine it for 20 minutes for all the subjects. Now, the way that you do this is using an overarching theme. So, for example, you could look at the theme of gardening. And when you are out in the garden, you can look at planting your bulbs in a certain array for math so that your child can start to learn about multiplication with these different rows and the spacing of the rows. They can also be looking at the seasonal changes and when to be planting these things, which looks at the life sciences. Even you can get into biology with the structure of your plants. Then you could be looking at the community aspect as well. What are farms good for? And how do people rely on each other to support the whole economy with the way that food is distributed? So you can look at this as a compare and contrast even with rural communities versus urban communities. Using this themed approach will allow not only this to go faster, but it also brings so much more meaning and relevance to the learning process. Your child will start to see where these connections are being made between these different areas, and they'll see how this is relevant for their life. It will also cause them then to become so much more engaged with the process, which makes your life easier to teach this more quickly. The second tip that I have for you, especially as a working homeschool mom, to help save yourself some time is to use video teachings. I mean, there are some days where you cannot be interrupted for 5 minutes or 20 minutes or even an hour at a time. What can you do for your child when they are doing their learning, but you are not interruptible? Well, a video teaching is a great resource in this way. And this is not a lesser than way of teaching. You don't need to be worried about guilt and shame for having screen time because visual learning is a very powerful and impactful way to learn, especially when you are watching and listening to that video at the same time. You're engaging multiple senses and different learning styles for your child so that they can take in this information in a different way. So video teachings can be a really great resource for you. Do not feel shame for using that and utilizing it when you need to fully focus on something you're doing. This brings us to number 3, and that is to have independent time. It's okay for you to need to be focused on something for a specific period of time where you work independently. And that models for your child and teaches them also how they can start to work independently as well. Now, for a younger child, this can be a little bit of a risk. So you want to make sure that they are set up in a space where they are safe and where they have everything that they need when you are not able to be directly focused on them, so that you can still have an awareness, and yet you know that they're able to explore the space on their own. And if things get messy, it's okay. It can be cleaned up later. For an older child, they're really going to crave this independent time, and you can give them that space and that gradual release, which we actually talked about in the last video here. And then check in with them afterwards on how things went and what they learned and what stood out to them. The fourth tip that I have for you to help with that really huge juggle of your own work and homeschooling when everything seems like it's a top priority is to outsource. It's okay to have different people teach your child different things. Take them to a lesson on an afternoon where you can work on the side. Take them to a class for a full day, like a community class or a different kind of outdoor exploration sort of class, and allow them to be somewhere else for a day a week or an afternoon a week and learn from somebody else. Not only does this free up some extra time for you to do some other things that you need to do, it also allows your child the skill of learning from somebody else. Somebody else is going to explain things differently than you explain things. You don't need to try to figure out all of these different nuances in order to homeschool your child. It is perfectly acceptable that you are curating the experience for them, which includes opportunities in other places and from other people. And finally, my fifth tip is to remind you that it's okay to get help. Bring in some reprieve and respite care, people that can support you with having a day a week where you can focus on your things, knowing that somebody else, whether that is a family member, a friend, or hired help, can be with your child so you know that they are safe and that they are well cared for while you need to focus on something else. This could even look like swapping with another homeschooling mom. Maybe that mom has your children with her on Tuesdays, and then you have her children with you on Thursdays, so that you can each have a day a week where you can get done anything that you need to for your work that needs some of that independent time yourself. The big idea here is that it is a juggle to be looking at multiple big priorities in your life. And so if you're feeling like you're being pulled between the priority of your work and supporting your child financially, and then the priority of your child's education as well, that is a normal pull to feel. And so what we want to do is find a way to find balance in the way that you structure yourself and your day so that you can provide the best for your child in each of these areas, one at a time. You can do this as a working homeschooling mom. You can beat this time limitation. You can provide a successful and complete education for your child even while working. And if you are looking for even more support and community support and that personal growth support through this process, well then the Teaching Inspired membership might be something that you are interested in. This is a place where you can find the resources that you need to approach your teaching in a much more efficient and effective way so that your child can really flourish in their learning. I hope that this was an encouragement to you today. If you liked this video, then go ahead, hit that like button and subscribe so that we can get together again for the next one.